They had no warning. By noon, over 500 of them would be dead. The helicopters came just after sunrise, their blades stirring the humid air above Quang Ngai province. Below, the hamlet of My Lai was waking slowly. Mothers tending cook fires, elders sipping tea, children running barefoot along the narrow dikes that stitched the rice paddies together. There were no trenches, no bunkers, no gunfire. But the men of Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, had not come looking for quiet. They'd been told this was a stronghold of the Viet Cong, that it sheltered enemy fighters responsible for deadly ambushes and mines along the trails. Tension had been building for weeks. Morale was fractured. The mission was simple: search and destroy. What happened next would stain everything that followed. The soldiers moved through the village in staggered lines, weapons raised, expecting resistance. There was none. Instead, they found unarmed civilians, old men in straw hats, young women cradling infants, children clutching cooking pots or rice baskets. Some villagers tried to run, others stood frozen in confusion. Then the first shots rang out. One family was gunned down in their doorway. Others were driven into ditches and executed in clusters. Women were pulled aside, raped, then shot. Children were shot at point-blank range. Some soldiers, laughing, tossed babies into the air and shot them as they fell. No one shot back. There were no Viet Cong in My Lai that morning. No fighters, no weapons. Just hundreds of civilians caught in the path of rage and dehumanization. By late morning, the massacre was nearly complete. Huts had been burned. Bodies lay scattered in rice fields and irrigation ditches. More than 500 people were dead, over half of them women, children, and the elderly. From above, Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson watched in horror from his helicopter. He saw the bodies piling in ditches. He saw soldiers chasing villagers through the fields, shooting them in the back. At one point, he landed his aircraft between a group of civilians and advancing troops, ordering his gunner to fire on the Americans if they didn't stop. He radioed for help. He marked survivors with smoke grenades. He carried injured children out of the village. His actions saved lives, but the damage had already been done. When Charlie Company pulled out, the official report claimed a major victory: 128 enemy dead. No mention of civilians, no mention of children. The operation was praised. The incident was buried. But the truth refused to stay hidden. In early 1969, a former soldier named Ron Ridenour, who had heard the stories from men who had been there, sent a letter to Congress and the Pentagon. An internal investigation was launched. Then came the photos. That November, journalist Seymour Hersh broke the story to the public. Days later, graphic images taken by Army photographer Ronald Haberly emerged. Women and children stacked in ditches, faces twisted in fear, tiny bodies limp in the mud. The country reeled. Only one man was ever convicted. Lieutenant William Calley had ordered many of the killings himself. He was sentenced to life in prison, but served just 3 years under house arrest. Most of the others were never charged. Some said they were following orders. Others insisted they hadn't seen what was happening. But the truth was clear. My Lai was not a breakdown in discipline. It was a collapse of morality. The war had warped the men who fought it. Month after month of faceless enemies, roadside bombs, and constant fear. In My Lai, that fear became fury, and it turned ordinary soldiers into executioners. Hugh Thompson, the pilot who intervened, was scorned at first, called a traitor by some in uniform. But in time, he was recognized for what he had done. His quiet courage stood in stark contrast to the silence of the chain of command. Today, in the village now known as Sun Mai, there is a memorial. A long black wall etched with the names of the dead, some with birth years, others marked only by the number of months they had lived. There are no graves, just names and silence. My Lai wasn't a battlefield. It was a village. And on March 16, 1968, it became something much darker. Not by accident, but by choice. Thank you for listening to Last Post History. Subscribe for more true stories from the world at war.